Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
2 days in a row, Mike. Went from like without show to days with the show.
Your audio's all breaking up.
Check. Test. 1, 2. How about you? Any luck?
That better?
Me?
Yep.
Better? Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, you didn't miss much either, buddy. A month feels like eternity for some people. How are you, Mike?
Good. You look vaguely familiar.
Yeah, last time you saw me, I think I was clean shaven. But other than that,
right,
same old. Back home, finally, Mike. Although not going to be for very long. Real quick before we jump into everything, are you going to SBE by chance? No.
I gave up on the Super Billiard.
Really? What was the turning point, Mike?
It was never my favorite. I mean, it's I don't know. It's Jersey, Philly, flea markety for me. Just a little bit. Just a little too.
Damn, Mike. I thought I was good on man. Flea markety. Fuck, man. That's actually.
It's great. People on the East Coast love it. It's a great show for cue makers because it's a good selling show. I mean, there's people go there and buy cues. There's a lot of players who go there, and it's not just like selling cues at CSI Expo or at APA or something like that. These are people who will go there just to buy cues. They're not playing in one of the events, right? So it's a really good event for that. And for amateurs, there's plenty to do. The pros always been kind of a stepchild there. It just, I don't know. It just was never my favorite. But it's a good event. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's very successful. It's been successful for Alan for a zillion years. So good for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on everything you mentioned there. In terms of like the cue makers and stuff, I know a lot of guys really plan their year around going to SBE, especially custom cue makers, and there are some serious buyers. I know like COVID really kind of took a step back, but they bounced back soon thereafter, as soon as everything kind of opened up, and it really is a show for buyers. You're absolutely right, and I like it because you get to see the cue of the year, you get to see all these guys work that have been kind of just in their socially awkward garage for the last 11 and a half months, and here they are finally coming out to civilization. So but I'll be out there. I'm excited to go out there. From that standpoint, really, and like the vendors too, because you get some international companies that'll go to SBE as well that you don't get to see at some of the other shows, I should say. So I can appreciate that. The pro event, though, I've never really gotten on board with it. Like just from doing stuff in the pro side of things, it's one thing, but it's a little like gaffy and gimmicky as far as the format and
like I said, it's always kind of been treated as a stepchild, kind of a okay, we'll let you do this, and there's not a lot of effort put into it.
They just throw them in the room and say, "Hey, you boys get after it," So, but anyhow, Mike, we got stuff to catch up on. Other than that, in the game, I don't even know where to begin because I feel like we're so far behind at this point of everything else. Everything that's happening. It's been nonstop. I think PLP is in its second week now.
It's third week. On match 483.
Yeah,
I think I counted 183 matches.
Is that how many they played? Really?
I think so. 183.
Mike, I got to be really honest with you, and it may not make some people happy, but I had zero interest in that event, Mike. I mean, absolutely none. I could not for the life of me get motivated to watching that event, and I don't know if it was from just being disconnected in general or like the lack of stories. And I know there was like some good young players in there mixed with some vets who were in there. And I'm not taking anything away from Moritz because congratulations to him. He did a great job in snapping it off. But like it just I could not get excited for that event, Mike.
it's a hard one in that you don't really feel watching the progression of an event until like 2 or 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Everything leading up to it's just you know um, it's just not all that compelling from a who's winning, who's losing standpoint. Now, the nice thing about it is you can pop in all day long and catch a match going on and see the conclusion of it. You don't have to sit around for two
Right.
hours to watch see who wins, right? You can see a lot of matches. You can see a lot of hills. You can see a lot of whatever. So, and that part's kind of fun. And as I mentioned to someone before, it's you have to understand it for what it is, which is a content vehicle, right? It's tons. It's 183 short matches that they can package and sell to TV partners, streaming partners all around the world. We'll take stuff in chunks, right? So it's a programming thing, which I get it. That's fine. I think for that kind of if that's what you're doing from a business standpoint, I think the players probably deserve a little bit more for sticking around for a week and playing 6 million matches for I don't what was first 10
20, I thought. No, I thought it was 20.
was it 20?
I think it was
Okay.
20,000
Um,
first.
yeah, it was it's a lot of matches for these guys to beat themselves up over for a week. So I don't know. Maybe there's appearance fees too. I don't remember, but you know,
I don't think so. I
that,
think just I mean, I know they get their stuff taken care of, kind of similar to like World Pool Masters and World Cup Pool.
yeah,
I'm not
right.
going
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
better. I mean, you got some of these guys going over there to Vietnam and spend a week and getting sent home after 4 days. So yeah, but it's fine. It goes. It's good programming. There's it's short races. Um, but it's a grind. I mean, those guys who were there for the European and then stayed through PLP, that's a lot of time in Sarajevo playing pool.
That is a long, and really that was everybody who played in that event, Mike. I don't think there was one person who didn't play in the European
Yeah,
who
but
played in.
some of them were out of Sarajevo early and had a week off before the PLP even started. So the guys who made it to the end of the PLP, end of the European Open. I'm trying to remember how many of them were in the PLP. If you look at like the final 8, like Josh,
Oh, funny you should bring him up, Mike, because we're gonna get to Joshy here in a little bit.
Did he call you up?
Hell no.
Did he call you up?
Fucking call me. Motherfucker ain't return my messages, and I don't know how long. So I'm not bitter at that at all. By the way, no. We'll get to Josh in the European Open. I think look, you mentioned from a content standpoint, and that's exactly what it came across. But it came across a little bit more thirsty for content than anything, Mike. At least from like the social standpoint of it. And I don't know if I can say that's a good thing, or a bad thing. I guess they'll look at their analytics and determine what's best. I feel like for some of the choices that were made in terms of players, sure, there's a lot of guys with upside, but it really felt like it was, from a selection standpoint, market focused and social media focused. Like that was.
It should be. I mean, this is the prototypical. This is the old school Matchroom event. It's find marketable players from a fan standpoint, find marketable players from a regional standpoint, and programming around them. That's the way their pool portfolio, right, before they came into the Open Championships type of formats. So this is their wheelhouse. So yeah, I mean, everybody could have been better players. I like that they try different players. They stick some new people in there. They try some new markets, things like that.
Yeah.
That's the way you try to grow. I mean, you're not always going to hit home runs, but the effort I admire.
Well, it's certainly thinking outside the box, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, look, you would have never gotten a kid not never. I mean, Maritz's knocking on the door, but he wouldn't have been, first 10 guys shooting into your mind as far as who to get on an event that you would consider like what is it, like 16 players or something, Mike? 20 players? I don't even
Right.
know what it was. But you wouldn't have thought of them like to be included in that, or maybe on the back end of it, if nothing else. But you get an opportunity like that, you make the best of it. I think he ended up winning like a race to 7 or something in the final. But it was just hard to get into from the very like. I like watching young players who have a lot of upside, who you want to see how they'll stack up. I don't think a race to 5 is necessarily that type of format, and especially when it's like no crowd, it's no, there's nothing. It's not like Mosconi race to 5.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, 100%. The last 2 rounds were race to 7, and it was weird to me that the last 2 rounds they switched to winner's break.
So it went from alternate to winner break in a race to 7.
Yeah, for the last 2 rounds, and I didn't understand that, and they hadn't done that in past years. It was always alternate break all the way through. So curious as to, I dropped them a note, just curious what the rationale was, what the thought process was. Sure that who knows what it is.
Danny, my man, I see your comment in the chat. I will certainly see you at the expo. I'm excited to go out there. I can't wait. I'm really going to be focused on more cue makers this year. That's a point. So I'll be stopping by the booth and getting some stuff with you and Pat and Fina, and checking out some great cues, hopefully. But yeah, Mike, back to POP. I mean, congratulations to Moritz. It's cool and all. It doesn't really affect anything in terms of like Mosconi Cup status. It doesn't get me like more or less excited to see some of these guys in major events, if I'm being honest with you. Like some of the Indonesian players I wasn't as familiar with, but like, them if you've been watching enough of it, but you just know of them.
Right.
You don't really, like, you can't really put a radar gun on them other than, looking them up in like Fargo or whatever,
Right.
or seeing what their year to date numbers are in terms of prize monies won and things like that. I still feel like these bigger pressure tournaments, like, how can I say this? So, like, some of these major events don't really have much of a crowd experience as it is. So, like, does that really,
Right.
solidify, like, where your bottle's at? You know what I mean? In terms of like fighting up against these bigger guys, I don't know. I don't think so. And the lack of storylines is where I'm settling at in terms of like how I was kind of indifferent about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right. No, that's fair enough for sure. That's something like PLP, fair assessment.
European Open, Mike, also went on over the last couple of weeks, and that was something I was really in the middle of everything going on in Vegas, but I was excited for that from the aspect of seeing it was basically the first event back with completely open fields in terms of the WPA and Matchroom. Although here we are, Mike, a month removed from Vegas, whenever we first started mentioning that there was a deal rumored to be dropped, and still nothing has been released just yet. Mike, what do you got to say about this?
Well, wheels move slowly in these type of things. When you have, agreement and principles easy to reach, legal agreements are usually not easy to reach, and so it's, as we said before, it's lawyers, changing words here and changing words there, and next lawyer, fine toothing it and changing words here and changing words there. And so, there's been a lot of speculation. There's been some premature announcements online on different sites of people saying they reached an agreement, it's all settled, whatever. It's not. So, again, in principle, it may be, but until they issue a joint press release, I don't assume anything is set. Now, I did drop a note to our buddies at the WPA, just say, based on this not being signed, what are the prevailing winds when it comes to the UK Open? Can Josh sign up for the US Open or not? I'm sure he can sign up if as long as he pulls out beforehand if there's issues. But is the European Open, has the UK Open been given, a pass yet or not? I'm guessing not officially, if nothing's been signed. I don't think that the WPA would want to say, well, we'll just give it more time. It shouldn't take between now and May for a contract to get signed if it's going to be signed.
Well, but we wouldn't have thought it would have taken a month, given what we were hearing,
right.
30 days ago out there in Vegas, Mike.
Right. Right. So, we'll see. It's kind of just, I would say hold your breath and wait, but I wouldn't hold my breath because it could be another 3 weeks. So, yeah, I do expect something that, something to get finalized. I think it's just a couple of I's to dot, a couple T's to cross, but I think we're pretty much there from what I understand, but still waiting to see. Matt's posting in about, I think it was, I don't know, it was a Vietnam site page that posted that a deal had been met, and WPA threatened to sue to get the WCB back, and it was going to be $8 million in court fees and all this stuff. I think that's, for one, judging from who released it, which was a Vietnamese page, I think that they were fed information that wasn't correct to just put out there. And for what purpose, I'm not 100% sure, but from the things that I understand, that was not the case.
I actually heard, I remember reading online as far as, I think, where was it at, Mike, in Europe? I think it was maybe it was in Germany or some European country where, they had went to court saying, that the EPBF and WPA didn't have a leg to stand on in terms of not allowing players to participate in events. I think it was, man, I can't remember the page where I heard it from, but either way.
Yeah, no, there was some precedence based on another sport players, right? So it wasn't pool, it wasn't the EPBF, but it was what the argument would have been for arguing against WPA. So I don't know, again, they don't want to get to that point. We don't want them to get to that point. Then it becomes a winner-loser thing. You want everybody to come out of this as winner-winner. So
there's only one first place here, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, it's there's no participation trophies, but although it's the fans that are losing for at least the last couple of years, I think, Mike, like, while I can appreciate everything going on in terms of conversations, and no news is certainly going to be good news, just given the history between these two. I feel like it's awkward because you have the European Open, you keep Josh off TV table for as long as he'll allow, because it was, like, Josh is a premier player, right? And he's the player that, despite their efforts to kind of keep him in the back, that's what everyone was watching. People were watching and seeing how Josh was doing. Like, despite whatever social media storylines you want to post in your own right, from a fan standpoint, that's what everybody wanted to see. That's what everybody was excited to see, was Josh Filler being back in a Matchroom tournament, given that he was removed from the Reyes Cup and removed from the Mosconi Cup. And so at a certain point in the tournament, you just couldn't deny the fact that he was going to be on TV table, which I thought was
if you want to get on the TV table, just keep winning. Sooner or later, you kind of stuck.
Which was very, like, fuck you, poetic, Mike. You know what I mean? Like, from Josh, and you can't help but admire that, because I haven't spoken to him. I don't think you have either, but I would imagine that he was very much excited to, like, really stick it to them, given how the last 8 months or so have gone, and so
yeah.
But, like, the lack of acknowledgement. Listen, the WPA and lawyers and all these things, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, that's fair. Keep quiet until something's due to get released and all that. But like, there's
Right.
a big German elephant in the room the entire time at the European Open, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. For as thirsty as social media has been for that topic, and especially in terms of like the frequency of their posts and all these things, like you couldn't get anything acknowledging, hey, we're on better terms with Josh, or even the photograph of the winning was a little awkward because it was like Josh was way over here and Emily was way over here, and it was like,
Yeah, it wasn't.
you know what I'm saying?
Wasn't
It was a
it
little.
wasn't the typical lovey-dovey trophy pose, but listen, I mean, it's is it a little catty on both sides? Yeah, sure, but that's where they're at right now, and that's okay. I mean, Josh has decided to control his own social media, right? He's controlling his own narrative. He's not doing interviews. He's not doing whatever. He's got his new page with Charivari, and he's he's going to put all his content there and all his interviews there and whatever. That's fine. You want to do that? We're not going to help you out. Go do your own thing over here. We're not going to give you a lot of, we're not going to go out of our way to give you a bunch of extra airtime. If that's the thought process, I'm in their mouth here. That's their thought process. I get it. He's doing the same thing on his side. They're doing that on his side. Is it kind of petty, catty? Maybe. Who knows? And over time, they come to their agreement. Things get back to a little bit of normalcy. Maybe over time, everything thaws out and it's one big happy family again. But for now, there's still frost warnings, so it just is what it is.
A little chilly is what you're saying, Mike, huh? Just a little bit. Yeah, look, it catty's the word for it for sure. Kind of like just not acknowledging one or the other is just, I don't understand.
Yeah.
They both need each other. You know what I mean? And
well, they're both trying to prove to each other that they're both trying to prove that they don't need each other. Each side's trying to prove that they don't need the other one to be successful, right? That's where the problem is, and that's where the chilliness comes in. And so people are like that. Businesses are like that. It's okay. My favorite part of the European Open was Naoki Oi. I don't care about all that stuff. I loved
what did he get?
To
Final four? It seemed like it was very favorite. A lot of the guys who were in Team WPA that ended up going deep in that event, Mike, ironically enough, if I recall.
Daniel Maciel, Naoki Oi. Well, Pius was there. Did very well as well, right? He made the Final Four. Duong, he was 5 through 8, right?
Something like that.
Boho, people like that. So, I mean, it was an interesting event. It was not the usual suspects other than Josh.
Well, but I mean, we hadn't seen him in a Matchroom major since the U.S. Open. Back in whatever it was, August, Mike, something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, you would have expected him. He still would have been a betting favorite going into the event. Had everything kind of been par for the course.
As it got down to the final 8, you're like, give me Josh and you can have the field.
He was fucking stealing, Mike. I mean, just stealing. I hadn't bought the WNT live because I've been in Vegas. You know what I mean? So like I hadn't, and not to say that I wouldn't buy it, because of course I would, just because of the amount of tournaments going on. But I had yet to buy it, and then I bought it like I think it was the last day, and so I literally turned on the finals and I'll never forget, because I was at the Westgate in the hotel room, and I turned on the finals, and I think I watched like all of 3 racks. And I was like, you know what? I'm going downstairs to the casino because this shit is going to be a bloodbath. And sure enough, it ended up being a bloodbath. No disrespect to whoever Josh beat in the finals, whether it was Oi or whoever else. But it was. I'm happy for Josh because I like the kind of sticking it to them aspect that, and given everything that he had to fade over the last few months. But like his lack of commenting or not wanting to acknowledge it either is I can't even think of the word, Mike. Like it's just I don't even know if I would even say it's catty. It just seems like a little
childish.
Yeah, it does. It does, and so trying to manage your social media and your content, I completely get, because that's the day and age that we're in. Everyone and their mom, like, it's shocking to me. It's great. It's great seeing more guys on social media. It's cringy to me sometimes, some of these guys doing like um doing these type of videos where it's like basic shots, and that's how I'm building my social media content, because it's just, that to me feels a little thirsty as well. But whatever they got to do to get likes and viewers and followers and all these things, more
I
power to them.
prefer that to selling. I prefer that to selling something on a Raz every 10 minutes.
Well, at least
And they'll learn. They'll learn what actually works.
like talking about what they're good at, I wouldn't mind that. But these like APA 2 style videos where it's just like, you want to know how to hit a stop shot, you hit bottom on the ball, and then they have a little cue ball on there, and it
Well, these guys are. A lot of these guys are just into the social media thing because everybody's telling them they have to do it, right? So they're not
right.
comfortable with it. They're not. It's not what they do. They, they're not. They don't sit around all day writing their scripts for videos. It's just try to do something and get content up there and hope for the best. And they'll learn by the fact that they're getting no views and this guy's getting 10 million, that they've got to up their game or come up with original content or something like that. So I like that these guys are forcing themselves out of their comfort zone and getting into what they need to do to help build their name, build their brand, make themselves more relevant.
The originality, I just wish was more there. Like, I don't want to see
it's hard to be original. It's hard to be original unless you've got that type of, personality or demeanor or whatever already. I mean, there's certain people natural at it, right? Josh is a huge name, right? He is not a natural at this. It's going to take him some time and some coaching to build his thing. But he's in there. He's doing it. He's on the track. He's getting it. It's going to take him some time. He'll get more comfortable over time. Everybody's got to start that. Everybody's got to start getting out of their comfort zone, because this is part of what growing is.
What I would like to see, like, and this is just one example of like a Josh, right? And obviously he's the exception to this, because not everyone has that resume as Josh Filler. But it would be, talk me through what you were thinking about during a finals. Talk to me what you're thinking about as you're going through the European Open. That's something that I would want to see, because that's current. That's, it's, I want to, like, if you want to keep it all to yourself, keep it all to yourself. That's fine. Keep it on your platform. But like, be true to what's going on. Don't try to like. This is what I think.
People want honesty. They want to know who. They want to know who you really are. They want honesty. That's why someone like Jason does well. Jason will just throw it all out there, and so what you're going to get with him. That makes him entertaining and interesting, right?
Carl's like that, Mike. When he doesn't have that Matchroom filter on, Carl can be.
So,
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. He can do stuff that's like very social media friendly, but like he can also be very authentic as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But Carl and Jason, you're not surprised they can do that, because that's their personality. So you get a lot of these players where it's not their natural personality. They're going to have to force themselves.
So much more than that, though, Mike. They're like socially awkward. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these guys are just. It is not within. But I can respect and appreciate starting somewhere. I can also respect the fact that they're willing to be uncomfortable to give it a swing. And it's very, ask Federer how time consuming it is. You know what I mean? And the frequency, and the filming, and the editing, and
if you want to really build that following and create those metrics that are going to earn you money directly or indirectly, it's hard. It takes a lot of time. You got to have a lot of these guys. Someone like Federer's got to have someone do it for him, help him control it. Tell him what to do, where to be, whatever. You kind of get to that point. So it's not easy, but we're not in a huge money sport. So if you want to build a brand, if you want to make extra money, if you want to get some stability outside of
a few extra $1,000 on social media every month, Mike, then that can help pay for a tournament a month. Pick it up an extra.
Exactly. So but but it is, like I said, it's time consuming and it's a grind, and you got to be willing to commit to it. And it all it does is take away from what you got to find that time from someplace, from your practice time, from your lay around time, from whatever. All of a sudden you got to find those extra, 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week to
Let me know
stuff.
what that secret is. Please let me know how to find that, Mike. I wish I could, But
You put more than 20 hours a week?
nah, hell no. Mike, you know me better than that. No. On that note, I will be leaving for Sacramento here in a couple of days, and then on Wednesday, and then off to Philly a week later. And I'm excited to go out there, see Tony, and celebrate the Marquang Memorial, which we'll be doing out there at Hard Times. But it's look, it's this generational thing between like the old school or the older players, and then these new young, more social media friendly younger players, and so they're getting their feet wet with it. So you gotta at least admire that, if nothing else. And it does give you like glimpses into who they are, despite the fact that like some of these are like produced type things where they're just trying to create trick shots and shit like that. Because I could never, like,
Yeah.
there's guys who already do that. They do it very well. More props to them. But like, that's not. I don't necessarily want to see that from some of these top guys. I want to see more of who they are. And I feel like there's unique enough angles if you're true to who you are to figure that out. But like, that's going to take time and some figuring out what do I like, what do I don't like.
It takes time for a lot of these guys. For a lot of these guys, it's going to take coaching. It's going to take some point in the right direction, someone you helping you out. It's a process, a learning process. I mean, look at these guys are infinitely further ahead than they were 3 years ago.
Oh,
3 years ago, there were like 3 guys who had any social media presence. Now people understand. So it'll speed up. It's one of those things that incrementally we'll get faster sooner. Carlos is all excited because this week is European Championship week. It's all about bouquets of flowers and trophies.
I barely saw his comment on there. Hey, listen, look, he's right, but this European Championship feels a lot different than years before, Mike. And I don't know, did I lose you, Mike?
No, I'm here.
One of my computers kind of locked up on me. No, just Predator took it over, and so they're showcasing it on their social media. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a long pull. I don't know if they've increased prize money.
I mean, listen, I love that they still do it every year, and it's a big deal. These countries all send their players because this is their whole funding mechanism and all that kind of crap. But it's funny when they do like the procession of flags, and there's these people.
And there's nobody there.
And there's nobody there.
Nobody is there.
There's like 2 janitors and a cleaning lady in the back.
Yeah.
And
they're waiting to hit the lights, Mike. What they're waiting on.
But the front stage has like 8 EPBF and sponsored dignitaries, and it's kind of give them credit, they're trying, and it looks kind of nice, but still it makes the PLP look like it was overflow crowd.
It makes the PLP look like fucking Hanoi, Mike, is what it makes it look like. So if we're being real with it, but look, that part is
this is the PLP with no money. This is a 10-day grind.
Some money now, don't they, Mike? It's not just medals, is it? They got to be getting money now that Predator's involved with.
No. Some of them play for is funding from their government for the year if they medal. If you get a medal, you may get. And some countries have nothing. Some countries have something. I mean, that was a big thing for Niels and Ralph every year. Whatever. If you medal, you would get a stipend for the year. Right, from the government or the association. So it's a big deal for some of them. So, but for the most part, it's the PLP with no money. It's flowers and medals.
Ironically enough, so
it's straight pool, it's 9-ball, it's 8-ball, it's 10-ball, it's teams. I mean, you're there playing for 10 days.
It makes
it's a grind.
But the
system, the system itself works. the system itself works, as evidenced by
They
all the great young talent that comes out of
they
here.
produce monsters, Mike, and listen, how
They do.
I and you can't argue it. Just look at any top 16 on of every major in no matter what camp that you're in. It's filled with these European monsters that were all just born and bred from that system.
Yeah,
And you
right.
can certainly see from, listen, some of these motherfuckers ain't got no personality, but they got game. You know, they got game, and the games that they do play, they're very good at. They may not be these American traditional games that we're used to here in the States in terms of like banks in one pocket, but there's some straight pool monsters out there that have that are
Yeah,
that kind of specialty. I can appreciate the team aspect of it. Look, having these Europeans putting on an event, you know, and it just comes across a little stiff at times. It's not to say that there's not potential there, because there is. And I like the idea of representing your country to some extent, but like
yeah.
it's
It's always great.
it's for sure, and especially if they can get some help along the way if they go and do well out there. But I've heard a lot of like puns and jokes over the last few years about the European Championships and being out there till eternity. This year, it feels like they're getting at least more of a stage and a spotlight because of showcasing it on Predator's YouTube. So at least it's a step in the right direction. And then who
Yeah,
knows where it'll go from there. I like the idea of getting into the Olympics feels like an outdated goal in my opinion, Mike. But this feels like it's as close to like an Olympic style event for pool as you can ask for in terms of like that type of what you're hoping the prestige would be. You know, because
yeah,
although you're missing the Asians, um, and of course the Americans, but it certainly feels like it's a pretty high percentage of players that are like in that top 1% of the world, all battling it out against each other. And I know it's long, and I know it's can be tedious at times, but like there's some pretty stout talent in there, in that tournament as well, Mike.
yeah. No, there is, and it's been around for a long time. They've had these European Championships for a long time, and they do. The
For
players, a lot of them go there because they have to. They're going there because they love it. And you see a lot of players don't go anymore who don't need it anymore. So if you don't need it, you don't go because it's just not
It's
fun.
a grind.
European players love their national pride stuff, and they love their flags, and that's great. And so everybody, I don't know, they seem to enjoy it.
It feels like a lot of like photo ops and smile for the camera type of feel at times during that event. But I'll be scoreboard watching here and there. I didn't know that the 14.1 had finished whenever it did until I saw like a shared killer fillers post showing that P had won. I saw Tobias, another German, had also won the
Yeah,
men's side of it. I was the one part that did surprise me, and I don't want to keep on going back to Josh, but it was when they showed a Team Germany photo, Mike. I did not see Josh in there, and he's usually playing in European championships, at least for every year that I can think of over the last however many years.
you play in it if you need it.
Oh, so you're saying he didn't need the money or didn't need the help, so that's why he ain't playing, Mike?
Yeah, he doesn't need a week. He doesn't need 10 days of playing all these events in Germany right now. I don't think. I might be wrong. Maybe he shows up. Maybe he pops up in these other tournaments. But it doesn't surprise me if he's not.
I mean, he's about 50,000 lighter than what he would have been last year. You know what I mean? I know he just picked up an extra. I know he just picked up an extra 40 out
Right?
there in Sarajevo, but getting that extra help, especially if you're playing and you expect to be playing in WPA
Like
events,
he's
getting
busy
that
working
assistance.
on social media content.
That's right.
He's busy working on content.
Okay, excuse the fuck out
I
of me,
want to see
fellas.
pictures of. I want to see pictures of Josh in the sauna like we do with Jason and Federer.
Bro, let me tell you, Mike. Some of these guys, Mike. Some of these. While
Yeah,
I like
some take
getting
it too
glimpses
far.
of them, you know,
Some take
hey
it a little far.
guys, I can't wait to talk to my followers, and I'm just like, come on, man, come on, really, you know, and that like this is the part that's funny, like with all the shit that Shane posts, it's authentic to Shane. Outside of like sharing the post that he's like needing to share
Yeah,
for sponsors or promoters or whatever, But like when Shane's taking a photo with the fish, that's Shane. That's who he is. That's what he wants. You know what I mean? Like
There's
you're getting a glimpse
Shane,
of who he is. You know?
Shane's social media presence is two things: photos with
Yes.
fish and practicing at his table with a still camera.
Maybe like
That's it.
about 6 days before an event, maybe 4 days, depending on how big an event it is. Before Saudi, he'll be practicing for about a good 10 days, I'd imagine, Mike, you know, and he'll just lock
Yeah.
himself up in the basement and just hit balls over and over and over again.
Why
Look,
can't we get Hall of Fame banquet Shane once a month? I mean, just
man,
go
let me
on there
tell
and
you,
do a
dude,
stand-up routine. He was
that
great.
dude, I mean, Mike, the line in the restroom after Shane got done talking, because everyone was holding it and everyone was wait, everybody was
Oh yeah,
waiting.
no, it was like a lot of people had their legs crossed by the end of that thing.
Yeah, but in the last 15 minutes or so, you just saw people that were like, ah, fuck it, I can't wait anymore, and they started dipping out. You know, they started dipping out, and then but by the time he was
the
done,
biggest surprise,
what?
the biggest surprise was the guys who left saying, "I can't hold it anymore," and they came back. He was still talking.
Yeah, yeah. What I forgot what the line was, but it was something like, and I'm gonna wrap it up here in just a minute or something along those lines, and it was like I heard that for like at least
Which time did he say? Yeah,
yeah, at least a good
yeah,
45 minutes I
the
heard that. But no, look,
yeah,
I like seeing different sides of players. Obviously, I mean that's part of why I enjoy doing the show. You know, and it's pissing players off and not getting them on the show. That part kind of sucks a little bit, but I also like having the opinions that we get to have and talk openly about things and stuff like that. And if it ruffles some feathers along the way, it's just going to be part of it. But seeing their personality, I really enjoy because you can find some golds in there. Like you can find some really good gems within these players if you can fade through the awkwardness or the maybe the lack of like production value or whatever, because they're full of a lot of stories that people would love to hear from. You know what I mean? People would love to hear about. And so getting more of it, I can appreciate while it's not too like, let me package this up for you. And I think you're going to like this, or I'm hoping you're going to like this, or I'm thirsty for clicks, or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is just, it makes me cringe a little bit, but to each their own. You know, they got to figure out
yeah.
what's going to go and work for them. The one thing that when it comes to these like top guys getting involved in it is that I'm curious to see where their game's going to go as a result. And in the short term, like Federer, for example, I had a lot of questions going into last or like in the middle of last year as it started ramping up. But like he didn't seem to slow down too much in terms of winning. I mean, the guy was still a monster even towards the end of the year. And I know
Yeah.
Mosconi was what it was, but like he really hadn't performed in Mosconi anyway, so that wasn't anything new for me, you know, in terms of like that disappearing act. But like it's how these guys had their own routine, and so when they go places they still like to stick to some type of routine, whether it's gym, whether it's getting out of the casino, whether it's, you know,
Yeah.
exercising, going for a run, going for a swim, you know, their diet, whatever. And so how is adding on this new responsibility, and it's going to take effort, because there's no formula where you can put out where it's going to say that video is going to get a million views or that post is going to get
Right.
10,000 shares. And so it's going to be trial by error, and you got to figure out what's going to resonate with your audience. And so how all that and the frequency especially, because how is that time going to take away from them being at the table from their normal like day-to-day routine and then thus affect their play? That's the part that like I'm curious to see. And some guys they just
Well, I don't even.
what?
No, I'm saying some guys. It doesn't bother me if they go to a tournament and they don't do social media during the tournament. If they've got a routine that they go through at a tournament that's to themselves and they want to dial in mentally and physically, I'm no problem with that. So I thought it wouldn't bother me at all if these guys' social media was all like between events,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
you pack things that are evergreen and you drop it during an event. But I don't expect players to walk around, uh, you know, doing selfies as themselves walking in and out of the arena before big matches and stuff like that. I mean, it
Now,
would be
some of these
cool, but
guys, it's like that's a checklist off of each match. Like it's round one against Dead Money, and they're like, "Can we take a photo for my Facebook post?" You know, and that's
well,
and
some
that's
guys can do
all
that.
routine these days.
Some guys got to stay focused. So it's just,
Yeah, yeah.
they just have to pick their spots.
I like no pun intended. I like killers. You know what I mean in sport, and I like guys who do get that
Yeah,
dialed in. And not to say that it's like disrespectful to the event or their opponents or whatever, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But like I just like guys who are, I grew up watching Jordan, Mike. You know what I mean, and so that's like always going to be that frame of reference for me. And I know, I mean, you grew up in you lived in Chicago for a lot of years, so I'm sure you watched a ton of Mike. And so, but just seeing that like whatever it takes kind of mentality
yeah,
and going and battling it out, that's the kind of shit that I just love to see from these guys. And that's why part of those stories that you get to see of like a guy come out of nowhere and grind, even if it's like a Robbie or a Mickey or whatever, those things are cool. And then but then it's kind of okay. I mean, I don't know how to take this other side of it yet, Mike. And time will tell,
yeah,
I guess. So um anyhow, the calendar does not seem to be letting up Mike over this weekend. There was the Seattle Open. Jonas
yeah.
Sudo comes out with the victory over Sky in a hill finish. Much of like the other events, Mike, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of it, and I was home for it. I don't know whether it was behind a paywall or not. I know I was scoreboard watching from the house. Congratulations to Jonas for winning that event. But I would have questions in terms of like what the format was like, Mike, whether it was rack your own, or if they had referees and what was the prize money like. I know Sky coming in second is great, but you would expect him to be on Mosconi Cups. Like there's really not a
Yeah.
storyline, there for me, Mike, if I'm being real with you. But I guess it's good leading into whatever events coming up next. What is it, the McDermott Open out there in the East
They've got,
Coast?
yes, it's just these events that, I mean, the Seattle, they had 64 players, it looked like. And it was kind of a lot of good players out west, obviously in the Northwest. But, your final 8, who you would kind of expect the final 8 to be kind of, certainly the final 4, was
It was the best
probably the
players,
most.
right?
It was chalk as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Skyler, Georgie, John Mora, Jonas. I mean, that's kind of where you expected it to filter out, and that's the way it did.
If you saw that
Uh,
field, those are the 4 guys you would have picked to probably get to the Final Four,
Absolutely, I think they were seeded 1, 2, 3, 4. So that wasn't a huge surprise. As far as the schedule goes, you got Super Billiard Expo coming up. That's actually a WNT ranking event, right? McDermott Open is this week coming up at Yale Billiards. And then you got, another couple more ranking events. You got the one in
does
North
the
Carolina.
frequency
So,
water it down, Mike?
no, it just gives more opportunity to guys. Not you get this many in this many different parts of the country. You're not going to get the fields are going to be a little bit watered down. But listen, if you want to go try to pad some money because you think it's going to be close at the end for invitational spots or Mosconi spots or anything like that, take a whack at them. If nothing else, you're staying in good playing shape, playing against good guys. I wouldn't spend a fortune traveling all over the country for these unless you're just trying to build up your game and things like that. Those are hard to fade financially. But there's certainly a lot of opportunities for guys to play.
I think like it'll make a difference for some of these guys that are on the fringe, and so that's where, like you said, you can kind of pad your stats a little bit, and more importantly, your
Europe obviously is such an impossible Mosconi Cup team to make. But listen, if you're Jonas, you threw $10,000, into your bank account, into your points account, in a weekend in Seattle. That's pretty good. That's pretty good work. If it was an American player, a young USA player, they'd be, almost be a lock for
USA
one
player, that would have
conversation.
been, yeah. I was gonna say an
So,
American player that give him his
10
jersey
grand
on board
for a
time.
player makes a huge difference, huge difference. So that's what all these events offer, is opportunity for these guys to all of a sudden put their names into some serious conversations.
I was surprised to see those Indonesian players, Mike, that we saw at POP, like Edward and show up there in Seattle. And I'm just curious if they're going to try to make a run for the Asian team as far as the Reyes Cup goes, and seeing them out there at POP and then following that up here just shows to me that everyone's focus and eyes are going to probably turn into moving into the Indonesian market, because I'm hearing that that place is just blowing up when it comes to pool, Mike.
Yeah, right.
Similar to that,
That's what he's talking about. So, yeah.
explosion that we saw out there in Vietnam over the last few years. So, curious to see how that's going to show its face on the horizon for those type of guys. And if they're going to be the faces of it, kind of like a Huang and
Yeah.
Tien and all these guys from Vietnam. And it's cool because you can go from maybe like an obscure unknown or just a regional monster or whatever, and then you can at least be part of the race. You know what I mean? And when I think about Seattle, some of these guys who were out there, like a Blake Baker comes to mind, where it's just like, okay, if he went on a run, could he tear through the U.S. and kind of build up some Mosconi Cup ranking points? Because I don't really see him go a whole lot out of there. Plays in a lot of those regional type events, but who knows? I like the opportunity. It's a lot to follow at times, and like from the American and the Asian standpoint, that part just is what it is. We'll follow those scoreboards and see how the rankings go and adjust throughout the year. And as the majors come along, of course, there'll be some separation and things like that, which is always great to see. But like going back to the European, do we know like for sure if Josh is going to be allowed to play in the Mosconi Cup? Because that for me changes the value of that event tremendously.
Yeah, well, qualified for Mosconi Cup last year too. That didn't do any good. So I don't know. Right now, if they're in the rankings, which they are, you got to assume that they qualify. So
we need answers, Mike. We need to get to the bottom of it. We can't be taking no for an answer when it comes to finding out things anymore. At least I've been in Vegas.
What do you say?
You're the journalist between the two of us, Mike. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to, you're the. I know you got the pinky ring on, Mike. But
you can ask all the questions you want, but you can't say anything until you get an answer.
Yeah.
So
now look, these type of events allow for maybe that 12 to 20 player kind of make a name for himself. Moritz is certainly going to be on the radar and a talking point for Matchroom events for at least the next 3 months, and he had been for the last couple of years, because that kid had been knocking on the door, and you would have expected him to snap off a major this year, or at least he would have been part of that conversation as far as Europeans go. Certainly in the conversation when it comes to young Europeans making a move, but that the talking points and storylines are going to show up as the year comes along. Super Billiards Expo is a whole other animal in its own right. Like I said, I don't know what the format is this year, if they changed it compared to years past. I know that last year they did like a wood rack, and they still had that come from the loser side to play in the finals like they had done the previous few years. It's odd, Mike, compared to normal tournaments, but anyhow, hopefully we can get more news when it comes to what the UK Open is going to look like. I think that's the next major event on the horizon. Is that right, Mike? Yep. So, yeah, we'll see how that shapes up in May. I can't believe it's already going to be April though, Mike. It feels like it was just New Year's.
Yeah, it goes fast.
Well, you got anything else, Mike, before we get out of here? Do we touch base on at least enough for now?
Yeah, it was a good kind of get loosened up again and get back into the
Yeah,
groove here.
we're a little rusty, Mike. You know, we're a
Little
little.
bit. Well,
We gotta
need,
knock off. We
you
gotta
know,
knock off the rust a little bit.
we need more to shit talk about.
There's plenty to talk about. We're just how far off on a tangent do we want to go? You know. But no, look. Tomorrow I'm gonna get Brendan on from, I think it's Billiard TV. And
Okay.
I interviewed him. Out in Vegas, and then it just kind of got lost in the cloud. And so I've been trying to reschedule him, and so we're gonna get him on tomorrow and talk about more YouTube and what that page is like. It's one of the biggest YouTubes in the industry, and they're putting
Yeah,
out.
no, it's a great platform. He does good work. Great job. You know, it kind of, you know, it's that paywall versus free approach to watching pool. You know, and I'd love to see him get more content onto those platforms. So you know, I know he's got a deal for Moscone Cup footage.
Yeah, I saw that, Mike.
Footage. So that's cool. That gives him kind of a, you know, a little connection to Matchroom now. Maybe over time that can be built up a little bit. We'll see what happens with that. So yeah, it should be an interesting interview.
We'll be live tomorrow at noon. Wednesday, I'm traveling out to Sacramento. Mike, I'd love to have you on tomorrow if you're willing to come on as well. I'm sure we'll find other shit to talk about. But anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this afternoon. We won't take a month-long break this time. We'll be doing more shows. I'll be taking my.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I know, right? Famous last words. Big shout out to all of our sponsors who helped make the show possible. And